Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Leanne Del Carpio. Recently I posted about leadership courage, and there was a photo of me next to a cactus. Someone actually said, you know, when I first saw this photo, I thought leadership courage was leaning against a cactus. And I laughed and thought, no, that's just not very wise actually. But it got me thinking about what are some leadership lessons from living in the desert. Here in Arizona, the beautiful Sonoran Desert teaches us so much every day about how we can not only bring our best, but lead others forward in the face of openness, emptiness, seeming emptiness. What could be to some a barren landscape or barren environment without possibilities, but indeed actually holds the key to unlimited possibilities. Today, I thought we would explore three actual leadership insights from living in the desert. So the desert is not just for Coachella people. It actually not only, and it's actually more prevalent than most of us know. It covers over 1/3 of the land masses of the earth. And while most people believe it's very barren, desolate, that there's not necessarily much there, in each case of deserts that I've visited, there's a particular cultural geography that comes alive. The people that live in the deserts and their rich heritage and history, how they have created lives out of seemingly barren environments, it's powerful. It's also a state of energy or a state of mind that invites us into expanses. So today, 3 leadership insights on living in the desert. So for me, I think one of the first things that I take away on a day-to-day basis living in the desert is this respect for uncertainty, for rapid change that can come in the environment around us. Now here, geographically, that might look like a sandstorm that comes out of nowhere. The Arabic for sandstorm is habub, right? Or a monsoon or a microburst or hail that just comes out of nowhere. So you go from blue sky, red rock, sand to kind of just a complete, swirl of weather in the moment. This is really powerful because as we as leaders ascend in our given professions, oftentimes organizations as well as individual leaders can become very anchored into the success formula that brought them to this point thus far. While that gives us confidence to be able to handle whatever comes in the landscape, sometimes that strength of this is the formula for success, this is how I handle the environment, it actually blinds us to seeing how things could turn on a dime, things could change overnight into a rapidly different kind of environment. It actually precludes us from seeing and attuning to what's changing in the landscape. The desert invites us to actually pause and respect how things could change overnight and then trust our ability to be able to handle whatever comes our way. But in order to do that, we really have to, number one, attune and be respectful to what we're noticing, and then actually begin thinking about or even experimenting in our organizations with different approaches that we might be able to pull the trigger on should we need to. When I gather with senior leaders or CEOs, one of the best questions that I love hearing them ask one another in these rapidly changing times is, what am I missing? You see, if we are so certain about what we see in the landscape, what we think the focus of our organization or our leadership should be, and all we do is look to our competitors who are facing into the same challenges and with their known best practices, we may be missing exactly what might be changing instantly, like a sandstorm coming out of nowhere. And so that's how disruption happens. Disruption happens from usually outside our industry with organizations, leaders, or people solving different problems in a completely unrelated industry, and then that transfers over to our environment. So how might you invite that question into your organization and into your leadership? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? What's shifting in the landscape in a completely unrelated area that would help me have a healthy respect for the unknown and then begin to plan some approaches to facing into whatever unravels. Okay, so that's leadership lesson number 1. The second insight that I gained from the desert is the sense of wide expanses. If you've ever lived in the Southwest of the United States or any other environment where you drive and you can just see these open, wide expanses that just allow you to breathe more deeply. It's amazing what it can do for your physiology, your feelings, your thoughts, and therefore your actions. And that's indeed how information travels up our spinal cord, right? We receive information, we kind of take it in through sight, sound, smell, etc. And if we have a sense of open, wide expanses, that then feeds our feelings of openness, our thoughts of, oh, I might expand my way of looking at this, and then my actions to look at a challenge from a new angle. And for those of you who study resilience, you know that one of the key shifts in finding more resilience is actually how we perceive the challenge at hand. If we perceive it as a threat to us, right? And we've gone from what was once encouraging, exciting, kind of maybe challenging us to step into a bigger version of ourselves or our leadership. And then something shifts in our mind so that now we see this more as a threat, the thing that kind of pushes us from maybe stretching ourselves into a little bit more overwhelm. That's what then shifts us into a hyper-vigilant, more reactive state where our resilience actually decreases. And if we don't shift our perspective and then shift our energy, we can kind of slowly decline, or quickly, depending on the pace of change, right, into less resourcefulness and less resilience. And so the key here is that perception change. So what wide open expanses beckon us to do is to expand our way of perceiving the challenge at hand and asking ourselves, what's here for me to learn? Or if you've just dealt with a disruption or a challenge, ask yourself, what is possible now that wasn't possible before this? And then force yourself to list 20 things that are possible now that weren't possible before this disruption or change. And guaranteed, somewhere in that list of 20, you're going to find something that unleashes more energy. That's what the desert teaches me. And when we can teach that to our teams, imagine how we can use the power of disruption and change to widen perspective, unleash more creativity, and get into more experimentation. The third lesson that I gained from the desert is something that I learned from Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist. For those of you who are a fan of this book, the main character, Santiago, learned so much from not only the challenges that the desert poses, but the magic that is within. You see, when we face into wide open expanses that can be so overwhelming that they demand silence, it actually forces us to stop reaching externally for the answer and actually retreat within to attune to the energy that we might have within us to be able to respond to what's changing in the environment around us. In The Alchemist, they talk about kind of slowing down to listen to the soul of the world. In our leadership and in our business environment, it may be slowing down to attune to certainly what's going on in other industries that could impact ours. It could be within our own personal leadership, slowing down to attune to what's not being attended to within how we're leading our teams. That silence actually allows something new to be born because we're listening with greater, not only empathy, right? Because a lot of listening, active listening, focuses on listening more empathetically to where others are challenged or how we might serve. And that's a great, great step forward. But this is an even more deep level of listening, what Otto Scharmer in the Presencing Institute calls generative listening. It's listening for what wants to emerge. It's listening to what is not being said. It's listening to the energy of conversations in a team and then naming that which you actually notice when there's a tension or a constriction or a curiosity about something that needs to be explored. The desert holds that space for the silence that's so missing in our world today. Those are my 3 leadership lessons from living in the desert. I'm sure there are countless, boundless other lessons, but I hope this is helpful to you, and I invite you to share other lessons you may have learned from visiting deserts that you've been to in your life.